Hey there, it's Toby Communications, and welcome back to another review. And yes, the time has come for me to share my thoughts on the 2015 Fantastic Four. Now, this is a film that I was curious about. I mean, I didn't like the first teaser. I was not a fan of it. I didn't care for it that much. But I liked the later trailers because it looked like it was a little bit more entertaining, a little bit more fun to the film. Yes, there's some scenes in the trailer, like the thing dropping out of the plane, that are in the movie. But when I finally got around to seeing this film, I was very pleasantly surprised by the movie. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to get these few things off my chest. First off, I don't like this movie because I want to be different. That's stupid, to be honest, or I want to be popular. Like, if I like a movie that almost the entire internet hates, I'm not gonna be popular because I like this movie. It doesn't make any sense. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Second, I don't just like this movie because my friend likes it. Um, he liked it, but he didn't love it, and I kind of feel the same way. But ultimately, I would say I thought it was above average. I thought it was a little bit better than that. And we don't always see eye to eye. I mean, me and my friend Matt, we are great friends. I'm really glad to have him as a friend and to have known him for so many years. There are a lot of movies where a lot of our feelings are the same, but just with the Fantastic Four films, he likes the 2005 film a lot more than I do. Uh, just recently, um, well, I mean, I don't not necessarily recently, but I mean, but in the past, I mean, I liked Amazing Spider-Man 2. I still like that movie. He doesn't care for it at all. I loved Interstellar. It's my favorite favorite film of last year. And I flipped the line because I still can't believe it because I had no hope for that film, and it turned out to be my favorite film of last year. He likes it, but he doesn't love it. So we don't always agree on everything. If we did, then I don't think we would be friends because it'd be too weird. But anyway, but yeah, we do have a lot of similar tastes in films and so forth. But it doesn't mean that I only like something because my friend likes it. That's just stupid. And I also like, and I don't like this movie because everyone else hates it either. Okay. There are plenty of movies that a lot of people didn't like. I did not care for. I just saw Pixels and I hated it. I think it's a much worse film than this by a mile, and I'll get to that later. Rise of the Silver Surfer doesn't get great reviews, and I don't like that movie. And speaking of, I like movies that a lot of people like this year. It Follows is highly rated. It's one of my favorite films of this year. I thought it was a really good horror film, one of the best I've seen in a long time. I saw Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation, which is one of probably one of the highest rated action films of this year, and I liked it, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was the best Mission Impossible film I've seen to date. So just because I like this movie doesn't mean that I'm just trying to be different and trying to be separate from the norm or any of that crap. No, I just like the movie. Simple as that. And also, it doesn't mean I have bad taste in films. All it means is that my taste is different, and that's cool. I mean, I think taste in film is subjective. Everyone's palate is different, and if you hate this movie with every fiber of your being, I'm the last person that's going to have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. I have no issue with that whatsoever. Hate I've always said hate what you want to hate, like what you want to like, or think what you think's okay is okay. Because I really like people to have their own opinions, and regardless or not if I agree with it, because that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if people agree with my opinion or if I agree with theirs to me personally, because if it happens, it happens. But it doesn't mean that it's a necessity and it absolutely has to happen in order for me to be satisfied. No, I'm just sharing my opinion and I'm being honest about it. And if I was anything other than that, I would be doing you a disservice. So anyway, if you hate the movie, fine. I'm in the minority here. Majority of the internet hates this film. They hate its guts. They think it's one of the worst films since Batman and Robin. I don't agree with that. I think there are much worse comic book films than this, including Batman and Robin. But hey, it's cool. It's cool with me. I can understand why people don't like this film because it is a departure from the normal way that the Fantastic Four is approached, and it is definitely a different take on the Fantastic Four than what people are used to. and what the fan base is used to, and all of that. So I'm okay with people not liking this film. It's not like this is a movie I don't understand why people don't like it. I just don't understand why people hate it with every fiber of their being and think it's the worst film of the year. But I'll get into that a little bit later. But either way, they're entitled to their opinion. They can feel however they want to feel about the movie. I have no issue with that. If I was gonna rate two, I mean, honestly, what I have an issue with this film is not the reaction it's getting. That's just, it is what it is. What I have a problem with is 20th century fuckface. What I have a problem with is the behind the scenes, the pre-production, the production, and the post-production. What I have a problem with is the making of this movie. If I could just rate that, I would give it a really low rating. Mainly because Fox didn't give a shit about this property. They openly admitted, we're just making this to keep the rights. And what the hell is up with the Fantastic Four? Anytime it's rebooted or anytime it's just like, oh, we're just making it so we can keep the rights to make a quick buck. So right off the bat, hey, I don't support that either. I'm with all the other people who bash Fox and bash this movie because of the fact that it's just made to keep the rights. I'm not a fan of that way of thinking either. I think that's pretty shitty. And Fox hires Josh Trank because they like what he did in Chronicle, but then they don't like the vision he has for the film, which is like a body horror, science fiction horror version of Fantastic Four. And they were already thinking and admitted wanting to fire him early in the production before the film even started shooting, but they couldn't do it because they had a time crunch and they couldn't fire him and rehire somebody else because they needed to get the film made, because they needed to get it out, so Marvel can't get the rights back. So right off the bat, I gotta say, fuck you, 20th century fuckface. You deserve the amount of crap you get for this movie, and you also deserve the box office receipts for this film. Even though I don't mind this film, personally, I think it's actually my favorite Fantastic Four film to date. That's just my personal opinion. Doesn't mean that I fucking like Fox. It doesn't mean that I approve of their fucking methods. I don't approve of their methods, and I'm fine with the movie tanking in the box office because they deserve it. But there's just something about this film that I liked, and I think what it is that I'm not a really huge, big Fantastic Four fan. I'm not an expert on the comics. I don't know that much other than what I've read in the Ultimate Visual Guide from from DK. That's all I really know about the Fantastic Four. Maybe a few comics here and there. And because I'm not really a super huge, big Fantastic Four fan, I like this interpretation of the characters because it was right up my alley. I like this type of stuff. I like traditional science fiction, low-key sci-fi movies with mixed with a little bit of Cronenberg body horror elements. I like that. And I like the characters, and I like the performances, and I like the way that the film built up slowly. I didn't mind that. Yes, it was a slow-paced film, but I thought it was a slow burn. Now, if I was going to criticize a lot of things, it would be Fox's handling of the film. Because I don't buy this bullshit that Josh Trank never shot an ending. I don't buy that. I don't buy that for 1 second. This is 20th century fuckface we're talking about, who greenlit an Alien 3 script about a wooden planet. And turned down a script with humans turning into aliens, 8 different firefights, Hicks and Newt. Hicks is still alive, Newt's still alive. Hicks and Bishop team up and fuck up a bunch of aliens, including the alien queen in Zero Gravity. Didn't go with that script, but went with a script about a wooden fucking planet. And that was back in 1991 or 92 or whatever. I mean, 20th century fuckface was 20th century fuckface for a long fucking time before this movie. So I didn't trust them anyway, and I was not surprised knowing they did what they did with this film, and I absolutely don't buy them putting all the blame on Josh Trank. Think about it, it's the perfect cover. They hire an inexperienced filmmaker who did Chronicle, but they hire him to the big budget film that people already have problems with because they want the rights to go back to Marvel. They don't like the idea of Fox making it just to keep the rights. So you get a young and experienced filmmaker, and then you throw all the blame if the film flops and the film's a critical financial bomb onto him. And that's what people bought into Fox's bullshit. And I see right through it. Now I do admit, I do believe Trank was probably obnoxious ass on the set, Well, he's not the first one, because there's so many other filmmakers who have done that and get the pass. Look at Stanley Kubrick. He gets a pass for being a dick on the set, making Shelley Duvall cry because he's Stanley Kubrick. James Cameron's a notorious perfectionist and an asshole on the set, but he gets a pass because he's James Cameron. So you have all of this. It's not the first time there's been a director being an ass on the set. Okay, and maybe he has a reason to. I was not a fly on the wall on the set of Fantastic Four, so I don't really know what went on. I don't really know what actually happened. The rumors of him making Kate Mara cry and all this other stuff, I don't know if I buy it. The damage to the estate, I could see it. Maybe he was high as balls on the set, and maybe he is a douchebag, and if he is a douchebag, he's a douchebag, and he's an asshole. But there's so many, like I said, there's so many other filmmakers on the set that are assholes, and they don't get near as much crap. If he's an asshole and he's a douchebag and he really did all that stuff, then yes, he does deserve to have his career ruined right now for the time being. But if he's not, then it's a lot of slander from Fox's part to throw all the heap, every single amount of blame onto Josh Trank. And even if he is an asshole, I still don't think it's appropriate to use his last name to call when a movie tanks to call it tranking or it's a trank. It's like that's really childish. And even I wouldn't even have done that to even a filmmaker I don't even care for. I don't use turn a verb. It's kind of a lame thing to do, really. I mean, you're just buying into Fox's bullshit. Really, you should be just as mad at 20th Century Fox as you are at Josh Trank. I'm just saying. That's just my personal opinion. So maybe he's an asshole, maybe he's a douchebag, maybe he did all this stuff as he did, then fuck him. And he deserves all this shit, but I don't know for sure. That's the thing. I have no idea for sure. That's why I wouldn't be insulting him as much as people do, because I have no idea how truthful all of this stuff is. I have no idea. I wasn't there, and just because Fox leaks it in the press doesn't mean anything to me, because it's 20th century fuckface, and they could just make shit up just to make sure the vapor trail doesn't come back to them. But anyway, yeah, that's a whole other story about 20th century fuckface and so forth and so on. But yes, the production sounds like it was troubled, sounds like it was riddled with issues, sounds like it was a rewrite, the script was rewritten, and Fox didn't like what Trank had to do, so they rewrote it. And I know Trank left a tweet that was deleted where he said, and I didn't mind this tweet that he has here. The tweet pretty much says this. He says, "A year ago, I had a fantastic version of this film, and it would have received great reviews. You'll probably never see it. That's reality, though." And then the tweet was removed. And yeah, I kind of do believe him, because the things I really like about this movie are the stuff that Trank did. And there are other reviewers, I've seen people do reviews who admit they like the stuff that early on. They like the first half of the film. They just don't like the CGI heaven, the CGI laden, lazy climax at the end. And who is to blame for that? 20th century fuckface! They're the ones to blame because they're the ones that did the reshoots. Trank didn't do the reshoot. Like I said, I think Trank shot an ending, because I don't buy this shit that he didn't shoot an ending, because first off, this is his second film. This is his first big budget blockbuster movie. He doesn't have carte blanche. He doesn't have that much power to just rewrite the screenplay to whatever the hell he wants, because he's not James Cameron or anyone of that caliber. So I don't buy that. I think he shot an ending, and Fox didn't like it because it didn't have a lot of action in it. But that fit with most of the film, because the film wasn't really an action movie. And I guess people were expecting an action film, but to be honest, I saw the other Fantastic Four films recently. They don't have that much action either. But a lot of people don't like those movies. People don't like how campy and corny they were and how they didn't have enough action. This movie tries to be a little more serious with it, trying to make you take the Fantastic Four seriously. And I thought at points it succeeded. It wasn't entirely successful, but at points it succeeded for me, especially for the character of Reed Richards. So yeah, they tried something different at least. It's not a lazy, half-ass movie like Pixels, where there's no energy and there's no fucking effort whatsoever put into the film. I know people say that's what it looks like to me. I honestly don't see that. I think there's passion there with the filmmaker and with a lot of the other things. And I got a phone call. Excuse me, that was 20th Century Fox on the phone trying to tell me to cease and desist. No, it wasn't. It wasn't Fox because they don't give a fuck. Anyway, because the 20th Century Fuck face. Anyway, it seems like the backstory behind this film is definitely more of a clusterfuck than the movie itself. Blame 20th Century Fuckface for the rushed ending. And honestly, that makes it, for me personally, I look at two different, I'm reviewing the film and as if it's two different movies. As if the first half is Trank's vision, which I like. I like the actors. I like the performances by Miles Teller and Kate Mara and Jamie Bell and Toby Kebbell. And I even like the guy who played Sue Storm's, Sue and Johnny's dad. I thought, yes, he is technically, we couldn't afford Morgan Freeman, so we got this guy. But I still like Reg E. Cathey as Dr. Franklin Storm. I didn't mind Tim Blake Nelson as Dr. Harvey Allen. He did all right. I thought the CGI effects or the little bit of practical on the Thing. I like the look of the Thing. I didn't think he looked like a PlayStation 1 effect, and I thought he actually looked like he was made out of rock for once, which was supposed to look like, instead of orange scales all over the place like the other movies. So I thought it was the best looking thing I've seen in a Fantastic Four film. It would have been nice to seen him do more, and I think if he did more, then I think more people would be more open to the Thing. But the fact that he didn't do that much, the fact that the scene in the trailer was never in the film because it was an unfinished effects sequence that Fox cut out because of the budget constraints, people have an issue with the Thing because of that. I don't know. I have no idea. People don't like the Thing for some reason. I don't think it looks that bad. So I don't mind, and the only thing that looks kind of chintzy maybe is the CGI effects on Human Torch, but that's how it is. I mean, it looks a little bit better than the Tim Story films, but not by much, and that's because CGI still hasn't advanced enough to the point where it makes fire effects look real. So, and I didn't think Michael B. Jordan's performance is that bad either. Honestly, I thought this was the first Fantastic Four film where everyone in the cast did a solid, respectable job. And it wasn't an example of the other movies where Michael Chiklis is like better than almost everyone in the cast. Here, they all did a solid job. Yes, they were younger. I didn't have a problem with that. That didn't bother me. Didn't bother people in X-Men First Class when Mystique is alive in the 60s and a member of the X-Men. It didn't bother people back then. Didn't bother people when Havoc, Cyclops' younger brother, was a member of the X-Men before Cyclops was. It didn't bother people with First Class, which I don't understand why that film gets a pass for completely being different. I'm taking a lot of liberties with the comic source material, but this movie gets slammed for doing the same thing, basically doing a different interpretation, a bold new vision of these familiar characters, and I'm like, what was this supposed to do? It was supposed to be goofy and comic booky like the last film was, that a lot of people don't even like the last films that Tim Story did? It was supposed to be like that? Guardians of the Galaxy. Well, that's hard to do. It's not easy to make a film like Guardians of the Galaxy, and I have to admit, yes, I would have loved to have seen a Fantastic Four film like Guardians of the Galaxy. And maybe Marvel, when and if they do get the rights back to these characters, will make a film like that. But that's no guarantee either, because after this film bombed and crashed and burned in the box office and was critically slammed as one of the worst superhero films ever to date, with an 8% in Rotten Tomatoes and all of that, Marvel probably won't touch Fantastic Four with a 10-meter cattle prod, because the audience has spoken loud and clear, and what they're saying is they don't like the Fantastic Four. And to me, I can see why. Fantastic Four is an acquired taste anyway. They're kind of goofy, they're campy, they're silly, they're all this. They're Marvel's most unrealistic franchise, and they made them realistic in this. I think that was a good idea, because it's too hard to make a campy, corny, unrealistic movie. And it really is hard to do that unless it's CGI, unless Pixar is making it, and they did it with The Incredibles already. But I could deal with The Incredibles because it was CGI animated. It wasn't real actors playing these characters, saying all these goofy lines and doing all this silly shit. So I think that's the problem. I think Fantastic Four is always going to have that problem when it comes to adapting them to live action, because what works in the comic book And what works in a cartoon doesn't necessarily translate well to live action. And I think that's why they've had such a hard time making a good Fantastic Four movie. And I think this is a good one. I think it's a decent above average flick for what it is. But that's just my personal opinion, because they didn't try to make it comic booky and silly and goofy. They had some levity. It's not like it wasn't there. There was a kid who called Reed a dick early in the film. There was a little bit of humor with Johnny Storm. I didn't mind. There's a little jokes that fell flat here and there, but that's to be expected. Jokes, there's a lot of stuff when it comes to humor. There's not a single movie, even some of the best comedies, where every joke works. There's some that don't work. No comedy is 100% funny. So there's some moments there, all right, but there's some corny lines I could do without. And yes, there's some things that could be expanded upon. Yes, there could be more character development. Excuse me, but for the most part, I didn't mind what I saw anyway. I didn't mind the character development that was there, because that was a nice start. This is an origin film. It worked for Batman Begins and Amazing Spider-Man, but in X-Men First Class, but it doesn't work here for some reason. I don't understand that. I don't get it. It didn't, and I'm glad it didn't throw in every single bit of character development in the first movie and cram it all into one film. They could have had, you could wait for a sequel to have more character development. You don't need it all in one movie. And I didn't mind the way that they approached it, where the Fantastic Four were individuals at first, because it makes more sense realistically to have of these teams of these extremely different personalities. Kate Shy and Reed Reed's, the nerdy guy, the antisocial type character. Johnny's the hothead. He's used to being a popular guy. He's gonna get all the attention. And Ben is a brash, impulsive, type of guy. You put all those personalities in one room, they're not automatically gonna have chemistry. It's gonna take some time to build that. And I like the fact that they showed that it took time to build that. And they were building that, and by the end of the movie, they did have chemistry, I thought. But they were building it. And then it led up to the climax of fighting Doom, and they all try to beat him themselves, and they lose, and then they realize they want to survive and beat Dr. Doom. They got to work together as a team, which I liked that, and that reminded me of the end of the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, where the Turtles all went up against Shredder one by one and got their asses kicked. It wasn't until they realized we need to work together. The only way we're going to beat Shredder is if we work together. So I liked that. It was simplistic, but I liked it. And that's what the most of the film was. It was simplistic, it was subtle, it was minimalistic. I think people didn't expect that, and people didn't really like that, I guess. They wanted a big, bombastic, huge, blockbuster superhero movie, and that's not what this film was. And I like that. I like the traditional old-fashioned science fiction movie approach the film had early on. I like that. I didn't think it was boring for me personally. I thought it was more engaging than Pixels and more engaging than a lot of other. I haven't seen Ant-Man yet, but I probably will like Ant-Man more. But who knows? I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know what to say. But ultimately, I did like this film, and I'd be lying to your face if I said I didn't. So I did like the traditional science fiction approach to it. I like the Cronenberg body horror elements when they first get exposed to them and get their powers. Or Reed Richards is stretching, and it has a different approach to it. The little bit that it had of the body horror element of him realizing what's happened to him. I could use more of it, but I liked what I saw. That's the thing. A lot of the problems I have with this movie is stuff that I could have used more of. I could have used a little bit more action. But the action that was there, I didn't mind. I liked the bit with Reed when he's in the woods fighting the soldiers. I liked that. Even the rushed, reshot climax had its moments. I liked the moment where Thing punches Doom. I thought that was a crowd-pleasing moment where it's clobbering time, and then punches Doom. Thought that was a nice crowd-pleasing moment. It made me cheer. I like the stuff with Doom popping people's heads like scanners, because I was like, wow, this is surprisingly bloody when he pops Tim Blake Nelson's head like it's a watermelon. It's like, wow, this is a surprisingly bloody movie. I don't mind this. I like that. made Doom scary to me. It made him terrifying instead of Jazz Hands or Marco Polo. Here he was much better than any of the other films to me. Yes, his look took a little bit to get used to, but at the end of the day, I'd be lying to you if I said I hated it. There's nothing about it I was like, that is the worst thing ever, worst Doom of all time. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. That was kind of interesting to have him be fused to his suit. Could he have used more motivation? Sure, but I was okay with the way they handled it because he got sent to the negative. He got sent to an alternate dimension, Planet Zero, and he's by himself for a year, been fused to his suit. He's been mutated into a cross between his containment suit and his own body. I think he'd be pretty pissed off, and I think you would be too. I think you'd be angry. I think you'd be fucking insane, and I don't think you would really need much other motivation other than I'm gonna kill everybody and everything that's in my way, because I'm not all there anymore. Because whatever is human that was within me is gone. So I didn't mind Toby Kebbell's performance. I thought it was actually an intimidating Doom for once. The writing near the end was kind of corny. Did remind me of a bad 90s film, I do admit, by Jeremy Slater, Simon Kinberg. Josh Trank, I guess, did help write the screenplay. Rewrote some things here and there. I don't know what he rewrote. I don't know what he did. And I don't buy the fact that he rewrote everything and then everything's all bad, right? Everything's his fault. I don't buy it. I really don't. I just do not, because I highly doubt Fox was let a second director, the second time director have that much power. But maybe they did, and if they did, then that falls on 20th Century Fuckface. That's another problem that they get. That's another negative that they get handed to them, because they allowed him to do that. But anyway, so yeah, I didn't mind a lot of this movie. I liked the first half. I liked the way they were building it up. I could have used more character development between Sue and Johnny, a little more scenes with them, showing their relationship, more scenes showing Ben and Reed redeveloping their relationship because it was so strained throughout most of the movie. And I could use more of that, use a little bit more of Doom's motivation and a little bit more action, but that's really about it. And that's what prevents it from being a excellent movie to me, a fantastic film. Are those things that the film is missing. But what's there, I didn't mind. For the most part, it didn't bore me. I wasn't bored. I was engaged. I liked the characters. I especially like Miles Teller. I got to be honest, I think he's my favorite interpretation of Mr. Fantastic to date on film, because I could actually take him seriously, and he could actually kick some ass, which is nice to see. And he wasn't a dweeb and a dork. I didn't get that vibe from him. I liked Kate Mara. I liked the little aspects of her character where in order to focus, she has to listen to music. Could have used some more scenes of her trying to develop her powers. Sure, we could have used more scenes of showing the Fantastic Four developing their powers. Definitely could have had that. But to me, I like this film a lot more than X-Men First Class, which had critics creaming in their pants, when that's a movie that has a ton of dialogue, just like this movie does, and a lot of people hate it because it's not a lot of action. Well, X-Men First Class doesn't have that much action either. It also plays fast and loose with the source material, and doesn't adapt it 100% like this film doesn't. And also, to me, the little bits of action in this were much better than anything in First Class, because First Class's climactic action scene is Magneto lifting a submarine out of the fucking water and Xavier telling a bunch of missiles to talk to the Hand. Oh, and what? Magneto throws a fucking quarter at Kevin Bacon. To me, that was way worse. Way more disappointing. Way more insulting to the source material to me than Fantastic Four. Yes, they did some elements where they changed some things up here and there, but I think they were building up to them being the team that we know and love. And in the sequel, it would develop it more, and they'd have more time for character development, and the origin would already been told, so then you would have more action. But that'll never happen, because there will probably never be a sequel made to this Fantastic Four, which is too bad, because I liked it. I didn't love it. I don't think this is a masterpiece. I don't think this is the best film ever. I don't think that. I absolutely do not. This film does have a decent amount of issues. Like I said, those things that it didn't have. More action. Could have used that training scene with a thing that was cut out due to budget constraints. Could have used a bit a more of a focus, because it feels like two different movies. You had the first half of Josh Trank's vision, which I actually thoroughly was engaged by, and then you have Fox's fast reshoot where it just tries to be a fun, dumb superhero movie, and it just doesn't really mesh very well. And but that doesn't mean I think the film is terrible, because I just think that holds it back. I just think that makes it so it prevents it from being a 4-star film for me. Because if those two elements meshed better, then I would be like, hey, this movie's actually really good. But those elements don't mesh together, and it feels like it definitely does look like a reshoot. I don't think it's a cinematic equivalent of Malware like Peter Travers the Rolling Stone does. I don't think it deserves 0 stars out of 5 like he gave it. I don't think it is completely, utterly worthless like he said as well. I don't think it's as bad as the guy from IGN said. And I don't think his criticisms were very good, to be honest. Because a lot of his criticism were stupid shit like, well, Susan Storm's hair keeps changing and Miles Teller's facial hair keeps appearing and disappearing. I'm like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? Seriously, it's a goof. And who the fuck pays attention to that shit? Are you really? What the fuck does that have to do with the quality of the film? Because I got a news flash for you, guy from IGN. Tons of movies have those type of continuity errors and those kind of goofs, and it doesn't affect the film whatsoever. So I don't know what the problem is. And yes, it does show that there was reshoots. What were the filmmakers supposed to do? IGN guy, what are they supposed to do? Were they supposed to fucking show scenes of Sue Storm changing her hairstyle and Miles Teller shaving? What the fuck does that have to do with anything? I don't get it. That's just ridiculous to me, and that's what I'm talking about. It's okay to not like this film to me. I have no problem with that. But this ridiculous over-the-top hate to the point we're just gonna destroy the film because of fucking stupid shit like Susan Storm's hairstyle keeps changing and Miles Teller's facial hair appears and disappears in a few scenes is a bit overkill. Saying it's the worst superhero movie of all time, or it's the worst Marvel film ever, and it's just as bad, if not worse, than Batman and Robin, is overkill. That's going too far. Saying it's the Pixels, the Adam Sandler movie, is better. I think it's a bit too far. Rating Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 higher on IMDb is a bit too far for me personally. You can feel that way if you want to. I just think that's taking the hate a bit too far. I understand you don't like the film. I understand there's a lot of extreme reactions from people. Jeremy Johns' his thumbnail on his review is like he goes shooting myself in the head, like oh god, like it's so bad I'm gonna shoot myself. I'm like, is it not? It's not really that bad. That's the thing. I went into this with no expectations. I went into it because okay, I kind of thought it was interesting. I was ultimately surprised by how much I liked the movie, and I didn't go off of. I didn't listen to opinions of Jeremy Johns or fucking Chris Stuckman or Angry Joe. I went into the film and I just went into it with my own opinion and my own thoughts in mind. I didn't go off of whatever anyone else said. I just went in and saw it because I thought it was interesting, and I give it a look and see if it's really as bad as people make it out to be. And I didn't think it was, personally. So, but hey, that's just me. And I have no problem with people hating this movie till the cows come home. It's just saying that it's worse than Batman and Robin or as bad. That's just, or the worst Fantastic Four movie. When you have crap like Silver Surfer, which I think is 10 times worse for me personally, I just think was a bit much. But that's just my personal opinion. And you're entitled to feel that way if you want to. If you want to boycott the movie and hate it like the worst thing ever, fine. I just think it's a bit much. I think it's an extreme reaction. I think it's a film people were disappointed by, but I think more and more think about it, I think the worst it really is like Elysium. It's a movie that has a lot of potential, and there's some things about it you like, but it's unfocused and it's disappointing. So that's how I look at it. I mean, that's at its worst points. I look at it like that. But I wasn't disappointed by it because I didn't have any expectations for it in the first place. So it was kind of hard for me to be disappointed by the film. And I'm not a super huge big fan of the Fantastic Four, so probably that might have played a factor as well. But I liked the approach that the new bold vision that Josh Trank was trying to do. I liked it. At least he swung for the fences and tried. He swung at it. He gave it his best shot. Fox didn't like it. Fox ended up fucking him up the ass and just took a film away from him. But at least he tried to, at least he had something going there. At least he tried. Wasn't a fucking lazy half-ass fucking production like Pixels, where Adam Sandler's fucking zombie is fucking starring in the movie. At least it wasn't like that. At least it wasn't as bad as that movie for me personally. Yeah, is that faint praise? Absolutely. But I still don't think it's that bad of a film, folks. I don't even think it's one of the worst Marvel movies. I personally liked Iron Man 3. I really did. I thought Iron Man 3 was worse. I thought Thor 2 was worse. I thought Thor 2 was forgettable and mediocre, and at points below mediocre. I don't even remember Thor 2, and I saw it in the theater when it came out. I thought this was definitely better than Thor: The Dark World. But I thought it was better than Terminator Genesis. I thought it was, and I know I'll get crap for this, but I still thought it was better than Jurassic World. Because I thought it wasn't as boring to me. I thought the characters were better, and at least it didn't have two annoying dumbass kids who took majority of the screen time. At least it didn't do that. So, but that's just my personal opinion. Would I say other movies this year are better? Absolutely. Rogue Nation, better movie. Easily a better film than this. It Follows, easily a better movie. The documentary The Death of Superman Lives I liked a lot more than this. I enjoy True Story, a film with Jonah Hill and James Franco more than this. So yes, there are plenty of films that came out this year that I thought were better movies. Avengers: Age of Ultron, that was a better film than this. But I still liked the movie. I still thought it was an above average production despite the epic ton of crap that was going on in the production and in the post-production. I don't know whether or not Matthew Vaughn took over and Drew Goddard took over the screenplay. I have no idea. I don't know. But it just goes to show you that this is an example of a film that Fox just didn't fucking give a shit about and didn't have any hope for to begin with and just hope they get a quick buck. So in that case, yeah, it's a failure that's well deserved critically and financially. I guess critically, I don't know. I don't necessarily. I don't agree with critically. I don't think it's that bad, but financially, it's well deserved because there's no reason why they deserve a quick buck for making a movie that they didn't want to make in the first place. But despite all of those problems, it turns out to be a surprisingly good film, despite all of these issues and despite all of these problems for me. So, and yeah, Michael B. Jordan, he's the Human Torch. He's a black Human Torch. I don't have a problem with that. At first I thought it was kind of unnecessary to change the race of the character because it's something that he's been white for most of his time as in the comics. But I was okay with it. He got the role because he was friends with Josh Trank. So many other actors get their roles because they're friends of the director. This isn't the first film to have that sort of casting, that sort of decision making when it comes to casting. And yes, he said some stupid shit. Like he said, "Oh, fans are gonna see it anyway." Yeah, well, okay, but I thought his performance wasn't, let's say, Joel Kinnaman bad in RoboCop. So I thought he was solid. I thought he was actually pretty good. I didn't mind his performance. I didn't mind the Human Torch. And the problem, I guess I didn't really have a problem with the race change because I don't mind Kingpin being played by Michael Clark Duncan in Daredevil. And I didn't care about Alicia Masters being a black woman in Tim Story's films. I'm perfectly fine with that. And I just think either, Johnny Storm, he should have been called somebody else because then it wouldn't have the stupid controversy that comes with it. That's the problem I have with that choice. It's not the race change. I have no issue with that. It's because of the controversy that's going to come with it. The stupid controversy where people are going to be pissed at it because the race was changed and they're going to have all this and all this. And That's the issue. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like what comes with the race change. I don't mind the race change. I just don't like what comes with it. And that came along in full force, and people boycotted the film just because of that. And yeah, but I don't think he was that bad. But anyway, I really don't know what else to say. I know this has been kind of a fractured, on kind of uh, all over the place review. It's just there were a lot of things that just kind of hard. It's kind of a hard film to talk about because of this backstory and then all this craziness that happened, and then all these rumors and all this hearsay, and then it's a film that it's very, very, very heated. A lot of people hate this movie, and I'm okay with that. I know it sounds like a broken record, but I just want to make that clear. I'm fine with that. But in my opinion, and you watch these reviews to see my opinion. My opinion, I thought it was a I thought it was a good movie. I liked it. I thought it was an above average film that maintained my interest. I thought it was an engaging movie. I liked the performances by the cast. I even liked the score by Marco Beltrami and Philip Glass. I thought it was a nice throwback to Jerry Goldsmith's scores from his science fiction films like Star Trek and so on. I liked, for the most part, I thought the effects were pretty good. I liked the idea of the interdimensional travel. I thought that was unique. I'm glad I'm glad they didn't get their powers via cosmic rays for the third time. I liked the way that they got their powers. I thought it was different and a nice different take. I liked the grunge alternative take on the Fantastic Four. I liked it. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. And normally I don't like that kind of stuff, but it surprised me because I like a traditional sort of dark horror sci-fi. I like that type of film, and that's what this movie was. And I think that's what went a long way for me. I think if you like traditional horror mixed with some sci-fi elements, maybe a little bit of David Cronenberg body horror, I think you'll probably be surprised and like this movie. And all I gotta say when it comes to this film is to make up your own mind for yourself. If you haven't seen this film because of all the hate it's getting, see it. And then see for yourself whether or not you feel it's a bad movie. Because just because everyone else says it sucks doesn't mean it sucks to you. So if you think it's interesting, you think it's worth a watch, and you want to give it a look, then give it a look by all means. Don't be one of those people leaving comments saying it's one of the worst films ever and it sucks, but they've never seen it. Because then you can't honestly say it's bad because you haven't seen the fucking movie. So see the film for yourself. If you see it and it sucks and it's the worst thing you've ever seen, go ahead and say that. If you think it's okay, don't be afraid to say that either. And if you like it, don't be afraid to say that either, because there's nothing wrong with liking this movie, folks. There's nothing wrong with liking it. Don't feel ashamed. Don't feel like you're going to get punched in the face for liking this movie. Yes, the internet might freak out and people might be pissed, but that's their own personal problem. But at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with liking this movie because everyone's opinions are different. Everyone's tastes in films are different, and that's a good thing because that makes it so this world is interesting and it's an engaging place to live in, because then not everyone is sharing the same opinion on everything. And I would hate to live in a world like that where everyone loves the same thing and hates the same thing and everyone just nods their head all the time. I like the way the world is, where you can have a debate, where you can have a different opinion, where you can actually have a conversation and actually talk about a movie and have these different opinions that come in during the conversation. I like that. I love that. Keep it up. Keep this world interesting. That's one of my big mottos. Keep this world interesting and have your own opinion on a film. Whether you think it's good or bad, that's honestly what, in the end of the day, what matters, because it's your opinion. And if you agree with other people, if you agree with me, cool. If you don't, that's fine as well. I'm not making these videos to get people to agree with me. It's far from the truth. I'm just sitting here as just a normal guy, just sitting here in my room, just telling you what I think about a movie. And I thought Fantastic Four 2015 was an above average movie. And I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was engaging enough. I didn't think it was boring. I didn't think it was soulless. I thought it had a heart. It just wasn't in your face. I thought it was a subtle, low-key movie, but I liked it. I liked the subtle, low-key approach to the Fantastic Four. And I thought it was a good stepping stone, a good stepping off point for a future franchise. And I would really love to. I would have really loved to see a sequel to expand upon this new vision more. But since I'm in the minority, that's probably not going to happen, and I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with this being a one-off and Marvel making a Fantastic Four film that everyone's been wanting to see, that manages to adapt the characters properly and manages to make an entertaining, fun, campy, comic booky movie like Guardians of the Galaxy, and they managed to pull it off. I have my doubts, but hey, I would definitely be up for it. And also, one more thing, fuck you, 20th Century Fuckface. You're the fucking problem here. Trank, I think it's 50-50, maybe it's 50-50 Trank, maybe 50% Trank, or even less than that. 30% Trank and 70% 20th Century Fuckface is fault for the problems this film has. Because they didn't have any passion when it comes to making the film regardless. But even the film managed to do the impossible, maybe take the Fantastic Four seriously, and it managed to be, I thought, an above average film despite the fact that Fox didn't give a shit. Which makes me worry. I mean, they just released Agent 47, Hitman, which is a pretty awful film. It's a bomb critically and financially. And they're thinking and actually planning on making a Zorro film which takes place in a post-apocalyptic future. So I think most of the blame goes to 20th Century Fuckface. Trank probably was an asshole, did some stupid shit, but I think most of the film's problems lie right in their lap. And Deadpool fans, I'm a big Deadpool fan. I'm one of you. I'm worried. I am really worried now about the quality of the new Deadpool film, considering the recent history of 20th Century Fuckface. So I'm definitely worried about Deadpool now. So all I gotta say is, Deadpool fans, start praying, because 20th Century Fuckface is not to be trusted. Anyway, I really don't know what to say, except if there's a rate Fantastic Four out of 5 stars, I'm gonna give it 3.5. I honestly felt it was an above average film. I thought I liked it. I liked the new stuff that it did. I liked the characters. I liked the performances. I was engaged. I actually gave a shit about what happened to these characters, unlike something like Terminator Genesis. I liked the score. I thought the bits of the direction that Josh Trank had were good. Whatever Matthew Vaughn might have done, I didn't think it was that bad. The sort of the climax, yeah, I didn't mind some of the effects, like the cars getting lifted up by the black hole and so forth, but it definitely did look and feel rushed. But it was still entertaining regardless. I wasn't bored. It wasn't boring. I didn't think it was a boring film, but that's just me personally. People are definitely entitled to feel differently. Um, and yeah, if I was gonna rate the post production and the pre production and the production process, I'd probably give it a thumbs down. But the movie I thought was good. I thought it was a good movie, good but not great film. Good starting point for a new franchise that we'll probably never see. But hey, as a one-off, I think I liked it. I thought it could have been a lot worse. But that's just my personal opinion. And anyway, thank you for watching my long rambling review of Fantastic Four, and I will see you guys later. See ya.